Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another podcast, and we've got a great guest on today. Man of character and style, as you can see from his lockdown locks. And the man I'm talking about is Dan Morgan Evans, Group Director Cargo for Air Charter Service. So Dan, great to have you on board.
Good afternoon, Chris. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, looks really good, mate, with the old, the beard, the long hair.
Well, I can tell you, my partner, she doesn't like it. She says this is not what I bought into. I was clean cut and clean shaven, and then obviously it's I don't know. My daughter likes it. She thinks I look like a bit of a rebel, as you say. But my partner, she's not so keen.
I bet deep down she likes it. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So Dan, right, firstly, just let everybody know what you do, please, and what your responsibilities are.
Well, I mean, it's in the title really. So I look after all cargo operations really for Air Charter Service. So I, obviously started as a trainee broker at ACS back in 2002, October 2002. So it's nearly 19 years I've worked at ACS. I can't actually remember when I took over, but now I look after globally all our brokers. That's all the cargo offices from LA to Shanghai and everywhere in between. So I oversee all the operations that goes on basically, and that's roughly at around about 100 brokers across our network.
Brilliant. And what a great period to be in. Cargo's now on the crest of a wave. I was talking to a couple of people the other day and they said, why you keep saying about cargo's going through this purple patch, and how can you relate? And I said, look, I don't know if are you into football?
Yeah, well, I am into football. But...
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've seen the first Brentford game against Arsenal in the Premier League.
I didn't, because I was busy watching my team lose heavily to Liverpool. So,
who's your team?
I'm a Norwich City fan.
Norwich City.
Yeah, I'm a Norwich City fan. Yeah.
All right, I'll move on.
For my sins, I've actually been to we've played 4 games this season. I've been to 3 of them, so I've managed to see 10 goals so far. Not one of them has been a Norwich goal. No.
Well, fair play to you. So 19 years with ACS, loyal to Norwich. That's great values there, my friend. But what I was telling them was, I was saying, if you look at the way the manager was walking around after the game and the way the crowd was, and they were so excited to be part of that Premier League. And now at the moment, cargo, everybody is relating to it. Everybody now has taken an interest in supply chain. Everybody is looking at how valuable it is to the legacy carriers. Everybody's got an interest in cargo. So it's a wonderful time at last for people to be involved in cargo.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's been if we think back to where we were really just before the pandemic, if we talk, just before February, really looking back September 2019 for that kind of Christmas period was a real sort of doldrums for the cargo. Actually, it really dropped off a cliff. And I can remember I was doing an interview probably in December, I think 2019, maybe even January 2020, and I was being asked when the recovery would be. And we were like, well, I think it will remain flat for the first half of this year, and hopefully we'll see some green shoots in September in 2020. And at the end of the interview, they went, well, this is going to go into our March or April publication. And so then obviously March or April kicked off. I don't think that interview ever turned up in any publications, because obviously that just changed the nature of our business completely.
But it goes to show, doesn't it? I mean, of course, there's experts in our industry the way there is in other industries. But, when you look now at expert information, or, who are the experts and what the forecasts are, it's so difficult now to see, where and what's going to happen, apart from supply chain, cargo, anything to do with keeping the world turning is going to be busy for the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, the only difficulty for cargo really is predicting how long that's going to last. And when, we would have sat, not even 12 months ago saying that, we would be back to pre-COVID where we were before at the moment. But obviously COVID just, obviously there's people in the know that kind of knew this would go on and on and on, but it's still having such a huge impact, a massive impact. And like you say, that's not going to stop anytime soon. So I mean, we're kind of forecasting similar levels of activity for, you know, like say 1, 2, even 3 years probably.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And when you look at the way, you know, with capacity restrictions because of consumer confidence and, you know, limited capacity, and you know, you look at North America, the routes now for all the legacy carriers that depend on that, and with the European restrictions, it's going to be hurting for a long time now still.
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to check out kind of, you know, as much as I can about what our industry is. And I came across, by the way, I did my degree is in agriculture, so in no way whatsoever do I have any business acumen or, you know, business degree. But the inventory to sales ratio is something that I've learned recently in the past few months, and the fact that it's at a historic low. It's the fact that the supply chain is so not broken, but so stretched, so at capacity that, you know, they can't get stock quick enough and it flies off the shelves. And while it's that ratio is so low and the inventory just isn't there, it's just going to keep coming, and it's going to be, you know, put that pressure and that stress on transport and logistics, and, you know, that speed is required for the air freight. And when it becomes, you know, speed for air freight, charters are the fastest way to do anything. So it's been a real, you know, a lot of business has been pushed onto charters just out of pure necessity.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you think everybody was talking about just in time, then it went to just in case. Now it's who knows, but we better do something onshore because nobody knows what's going to happen. So definitely. But what you said there about the agricultural degree, you know, you reap what you sow. So I've seen the videos of Chris and also with Justin in there, and it's a great, you've got a great history. The company, it's really nice to see, you know, how it started, you know, and see the passion and the way Chris talks about Justin when he first met him, about the knowledge of aircraft and bringing that knowledge of what was flying where and when, and, you know, with what he wanted to achieve. It's a lovely story.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been here for 19 years of it, so I feel like I've been here, you know, for nearly 2/3 of it. And you know, it's become a behemoth. Like over the 30 years that it's been going, or 31 years. I said to someone the other day, and I can't remember who it was, but we said it felt oh, it's actually a new starter. I was talking to them and introducing them to the company, and I said it felt like Chris and Justin, or Chris and then Justin, had spent 30 years building the company, building it to deal with exactly what happened last year. It felt like that was a culmination of all the time and all the effort and everything we've been doing for that long a time, in order to kind of get to that point where we can do what we did last year and continue to do this year. So yeah, it's an extraordinary achievement from Chris with his right-hand man Justin over the past 30 years.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Now, in the amount of time that you've been there, and obviously, you know, when certain things happen in our industry, it's great for charter. But how has this been different from the periods of should we say, you know, popularity with charters? How has this differed?
Well, I mean, you kind of have to go back. I guess you kind of going back to February last year. You know, January, February, when the outbreak in China. You know, we started off by doing, weirdly enough, we did some charters, I think out of South Africa, with face masks for the Chinese, because that's where they were manufactured at that point. And then you kind of think, oh, that's the end of that. That's nice. We've got a little bit of business out of this. And then obviously, well, we know the rest of the story in terms of how it spread around the world so damn fast. But I think that, you know, one of the things that ACS do is that we generally bring on junior, young guys, young women out of university, maybe second jobbers, you know, and bring them on, not necessarily from aviation, actually mostly not from aviation, quite a lot just from sales. And we teach them how to do the aviation stuff, and they know how to do the sales stuff, and they basically try and find customers, and it's that constant trying to find customers that we do in ACS. And, you know, not everybody charters an aeroplane, and a lot of that cold calling stuff that happens, you know, there's a lot of knockbacks, and, you know, there's a lot of customers that don't really deal with that sort of stuff. And then suddenly everybody needed transport, everybody needed face masks, everybody needed PPE. And so every single one of our customers, freight forwarders that we had in our database, all of them had requests. And you know, we're in a fortunate position where we have, like I said, nearly 100 cargo brokers around the world, where we had the capacity to deal with every single one of those requests. And not only that, when you run out of cargo aircraft, which we did at some point, you know, we have a commercial jet division all based all around the world that also had relationships with passenger aircraft. And you know, we ended up chartering as well. It's kind of the business now, but at that point, chartering a passenger aircraft for a cargo charter was quite an unusual thing to do. So sorry, my phone's going now.
Don't worry. Turn it off.
It was quite unusual. It was quite an unusual thing to do. But we had the kind of backup of our entire team of commercial jets charter brokers around the world, which is about anywhere between 40 and 50 brokers around the world. So we had that existing relationships already within our business to suppliers that the cargo brokers didn't necessarily know. So we basically took advantage of the sort of behemoth that ACS is. And yeah, you know, we generated a lot of new business, a lot of new customers, some old customers still chartering. So it was just the fact that I think at that point, any customer that came in with a request, it could well have been a real charter, a real request. So every single one had to be taken seriously. And luckily we have the capacity to be able to manage that volume of requests. And the volume, I can tell you, was huge. Yeah, absolutely massive. So I think that I asked Glenn to send me what our stats were for last year, because I needed to arm myself. And he said we stopped counting at what does he say? We stopped counting at 30,000 tons in 63 different countries that we delivered PPE to. After that, it felt kind of ridiculous to carry on counting. So it was, and bear in mind, put that into context. The company, we're quite secure about our data. We're quite closed about, you know, the information that leaves this building or any one of our buildings. We were all working from home. I mean, like the rest of the world were, but we were always told this job was, you couldn't do it like that. It wouldn't work. It's difficult to do. Yet we were having our busiest period ever, servicing thousands of requests, thousands of charters, while many of our, again, going back to who we recruit, you know, these you know, I want to say young boys and girls, but you know, they're young adults, but you know, they're living in shared houses, they're living in small flats, you know, doing their work off their knees or whatever it is on their bed. So that's when you say how was the difference being busy this time? That's the difference. It was the whole circumstance about how it was manifesting itself.
Yeah, and it really is incredible, and it shows that, you know, once this settles down a little bit, there'll be a hybrid sort of model that I think people will start looking forward to. You know,
I think so. I mean, obviously, there's, you know, we arrived back into the office full time last week. You know, the office has been open for a while. We've been doing red blue team in out, so we don't want to have, you know, infect the whole office. We do PCR tests every week that are paid for by ACS. So we're trying to keep as COVID safe as possible. But obviously, when the world opened up, in July, I think it was, we decided that we wouldn't. This was the only time we hadn't followed government policy, and we decided to extend it and keep it as a two-team scenario until at least the schools went back. So to give people like me with kids at school a chance to kind of get themselves organised and back to how it would be. So, and then, like you mentioned, you know, the hybrid system. It's really difficult. We can do this job out of the office, but so much of it is knowledge-based and information flow. And sure, we can do it on Teams, we can do it on Zooms, we can do it on emails, we can have WhatsApps, which we do all of that messaging anyway. But that we don't, it's very hard for us, the way we work, to bring on our next generation of salespeople without them sitting next to us. I would go to say it's almost impossible. You can't teach what we do and bring on that next generation over a video call. So it's really important for us that we got back in the office and we started doing what we've been doing for 30 years, which is bringing brokers through, bringing in new generation, expanding into new territories, and whatever we need to do. And in order to carry on growing like we've grown, it's great that we should be more flexible, but for us, it really, that knowledge, that transfer of knowledge, that the trading floor that we call it, you kind of got to be there. So it's good, but we do need to get them back in the office in terms of to be able to continue how we operate.
Yeah, but I think a lot of companies are starting to realise, and as good as Zoom and Teams and everything else is, you do need that. You do need that interaction and that sharing, and also the the understanding as well. So the hybrid model, I think is going to be something that all companies are going to have to look at moving forward.
Yeah,
and also because of pressure that comes from the employees and from, unfortunately, the press.
Yeah,
I think there's there's too much fragmented focus on people to say we need this, we can't do this, we have to do this, and
yeah, definitely. I mean, we tried to. I mean, if you looked at our social media last week, we did a kind of welcome back week. We had tournaments in the office. We had a table tennis, a table football table. We had a driving simulator, golf simulator. We had a big party on Friday night. My partner actually, she works here, so she's been kind of tasked with engagement, getting back that you talked about, Chris. What he's built and how the ACS is. When you're all sitting in your houses, that is so hard to keep that. We tried it so hard to keep that kind of family feel, the kind of together ACS, but it's really important to get back in and just reignite what it is that makes ACS so special to work for. So we've had food trucks turn up, we've had ice cream trucks turn up. She's basically just trying to get everyone back to the office by giving them good food. Is really what the situation is. So and I think it's working. It's I think people are, like you say, it will be hybrid. There's some flexibility in there, but on the whole, I think you hear it outside. I hear it on the trading floor. People getting that buzz back, getting that flow of information back again, which is really healthy for the company.
I agree. Now, technology obviously has to play a part. If you look at a lot of the legacy carriers now and the GSAs, there's an awful lot of tools available now for, depending on what percentage of the total bookings that you want to put in over a system. So it cuts out that interface, but it also speeds things up a little bit. Now, are you also looking at certain technology and various artificial intelligence when the offers come in or when the requests come in? Are you doing things like that?
Yeah, certainly. We try. I don't know the figures off the top of my head, but we have invested, and we are investing millions, literally millions, in our IT technology. Most of it, to be honest, or what we've spent so far is to do with broker efficiency and to the efficiencies of how we work. Again, we talked about a minute ago, that personal relationship when you're doing cargo charters or indeed private jet charters and comjet charters is really important. You don't apps and online booking services is fine for low value transactional type business, but when it comes to adding value, you need a personal relationship with people. I personally believe that. But obviously, technology plays a big part in what we do. We've got a system here. It's called iBoss. It's Integrated Broker Operating System, which we've been developing for a number of years, and it's just something that just develops over time. It's a constant development actually, and that's really at the moment geared towards. You kind of have to build that internal platform to get it 100% right before we want to externalize it, which it will be. I'm not going to tell you a date because I'm sure my head of IT would kill me if I said a date. But we want to get it right for us and make sure that our internal work processes work very well, and then we'll it'll start to be more customer facing and airline facing possibly. But yeah, in terms of how our brokers are capable of dealing with vast amounts of requests and getting those requests out to airlines, getting those prices back much faster than we were last year, the year before, the year before that. It's constantly speeding up the way we do things. We don't. It may not be. We're not a tech company, okay? And quite frankly, I don't believe half these tech companies are actually tech companies. They're just brokers in the background, but not doing what we do. But we do have technology. We're an aviation company, but we use technology to our advantage. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you there. Now, and also the differential between like whether you've got volume products or value products, and obviously you'd be selling the value products. Now, as far as shippers and forwarders and people that wouldn't normally have got involved, you must be seeing a huge swing now, whereby they're moving away from the normal options that they would have had and the legacy carriers, and now they're coming so that they've got more control over their capacity, they've got more control over their schedule, where it goes, etc. So how are you dealing with that to give them more and better than they had before?
I think that's probably one of the biggest changes in the market in the past 18 months, I would say. Last year, certainly, everyone was caught out by the pandemic. Okay, the scheduled capacity dropped off a cliff. The freight rates went through the roof, and those people who are just generally trying to send their stuff, it was a real headache for them. And I feel for the forwarders. I feel for the people that had those contracts, and they've got to try and feel that anger from their customers of why they're having to pay so much money, or why they can't honor their contracts, or is it force majeure, is it not force majeure, that sort of thing. I said it at the end of middle of last year. I said the one thing that we've got to try and do is make sure that we are ready to offer long-term capacity to freight forwarders around the world, because the one thing that, if I was a freight forwarder, the one thing I would want to do is lock in capacity and make sure I control the narrative and not the market, not the airline. So and that's happened. We've seen it happen. So we're obviously supplying long-term capacity to a number of different customers, and you have to look at the big players in this market. The GEODIS is taking on their own aircraft, and DSVs. You see it every day. More aircraft being taken on, and the capacity being controlled by the forwarders. It didn't take a genius to figure out that was what was going to happen. I think that's probably a good thing. It's good for the airline to be able to get some sort of consistency and knowledge that they've got this money coming in the door. Everyone likes to put some numbers in their forward bookings. Of course they do. I think that gives the forwarders some comfort. They can service their customers when they need to, and it gives us an opportunity to help connect the two sometimes. So it's been a good opportunity for us, I think.
But it's a big swing, isn't it? And if you look at the way things are going now with the forwarders buying each other up and taking over, and there's a lot of stress and pressure. Who's going to take me over soon, and how many are going to be left? And everybody's thinking, there's going to be so much M&A activity over the next year or so. How's it going to look? And you mentioned there DSV and taking over Panalpina and taking all the Panalpina signs down everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge change.
It is a huge change. I think, again, I'm these things. Some people would say that's a disaster. It's less choice for the customer, but I mean, I think that also gives independents an opportunity. Certainly not everything. There is the basic sort of basic, but there's contract logistics, stuff that you're doing all the time. But there's a more niche market that's now certainly the more niche movements for companies to do, shippers to do. I think that gives an opportunity for independents to go out there and place themselves differently in the market to be able to capture that business. Which is good for us, I think, because independents are always good to work with people like ACS. And I think it will I think shippers will still have choice. I don't think that DSV, Panalpina, and Agility all joining forces is going to be the end of the world. It does create obviously a huge forwarding company, but all these things do create opportunity for other people. Not everybody wants to be with the biggest forwarder in the world, and I think that those more niche movements, like those kind of I can't remember what word you said now. Not the volume, but the value. The value movements there'll be people will be looking for value. People will be looking for people that will look after them and hold their hands through what they need doing. So I think there's opportunity there.
Yeah. And I think it's also now going to, make some of the carriers wake up a little bit and decide what they should be doing as part of a bigger supply chain, offering alternatives, which means airports. Now, you said over 100 brokers. Now, you must also see the difference between some airports and some that are a lot more pro cargo and also charter. And it's a huge difference out there.
Yeah, it is.
Now, some of them are a lot more forward thinking than people were expecting. And those that have got, decent amount of land and they've got opportunities now to build so it's future proof, it's also going to change the options as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's definitely the case. I do sometimes worry, with some of the airports that we may have used over the past 18 months have really, they may have gone, oh yeah, we're very pro cargo, bring your cargo here, and you kind of get into a rhythm of using that airport. It doesn't take long for them, once the passengers start coming in, to start flipping back. And I think you mentioned it at the beginning of this whole thing, the fact that people are now sitting up and taking notice of cargo and it not being something that's beneath someone's feet in a plane or whatever it is. And then it's now an important part of business, an important part of what people do, vital part of business. So I'm hoping that, those airports that have switched to cargo from passenger, or certainly helped kind of develop their cargo side of the business, could continue to do that. Options for anyone really, for us, but is always a good thing. And good cargo airports are worth their weight in gold for us.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. And I think the way things will map out is, like, if you were to do a profile of airports, there's certain indicators that you could actually, you could look at and you say, right, no, as soon as the wind blows the other way, the decisions will go the other way. So the ones that are really doing well now, they deserve to be supported well.
Yeah, I agree.
Benefit of cargo, until such time as the industry itself starts to showcase cargo as a separate entity within the aviation side of the business that we're in, because it's still always people talking X percentage of total revenue. Well, cargo deserves now to be on its own. And if that happens, then things will start to change. Now, with 100 brokers, you've also got to contend with, service suppliers, GHAs, ground handling. You've got to deal with all of that as well. Yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's quite difficult sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, during one of the very big advantages we've had during the pandemic is that obviously most of the stuff that has moved around the world, a lot of it has come out of China. And I'll be frank, China to me, Chinese airports, when I was a broker, was always slightly terrifying. to be honest, we kind of, I started in 2002. We had an office in Moscow, and quite frankly, I didn't really do many charters from Russia, so it always seemed to slightly kind of removed from me. And then when we did charters from China, you kind of learn on the job a little bit of what to do. The massive advantage that we had, and the thing that made it took the headache out of our business last year, and is still taking the headache out of our business, is our Beijing office and our Shanghai office. I personally don't think any of them have slept since February 2020. I'm pretty sure they haven't. And I don't know how we would have been able to cope without having those guys arranging our ground transport, our ground handling, even so. I think I was going to talk to Amos, the head of our Shanghai office, but I remember the kind of the stories of the trucks just queuing miles back out of the airport, and no one was there to be able to offload these trucks, and our planes were turning up. And Amos, I don't know how he managed to do it. He managed to get someone that he knew with a warehouse. Excuse me, got us some space, got us a forklift, took this warehouse over, and offloaded our trucks on the street and took this stuff into the warehouse and got all our PPE moving through. So saved everyone thousands in terms of, you know, the possibility of demurrage on the aircraft and
exactly,
all that sort of stuff. And it just wouldn't have been possible without doing it for us. I mean, I don't know how other brokers did it or other forwarders, maybe they had offices there, but for us it was a godsend. So they were doing what they did to help us help the rest of the ACS network. The strange thing was we had a you know, this is how small this kind of business is, really, even though it's global and massive. We were doing some flights. So Tom Howe in our LA office, he's the head of our CEO of our LA office, but he also he's a cargo broker as well. He got a booking for a flight from China into LA with some face masks, and so Tom's obviously there. You've got China and LA. The time difference is just ridiculous. And then he sent a message to his customers saying, "I'm copying in my guy Oscar in our Beijing office. He's going to help with the onloading in China and, you know, do all the paperwork and all that sort of stuff." And this customer wrote back going, "Oh, I know Oscar. Oscar helped me. I did some clearance for a charter that Oscar had arranged for someone in China." And you're like, I mean, what are the chances? So, I mean, it was just extraordinary that, and I guess maybe it wasn't so extraordinary because there aren't so many brokers that have got kind of offices in Beijing and Shanghai and then in LA at the same time. So it seemed to me to be a massive kind of coincidence, but actually maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was quite a normal procedure. But yeah, I think Tom was quite taken back that his customer goes, "Yeah, I know, Oscar."
No, but I think you're right. The what you said there about it's a global industry, but it's you know, it's quite small and it's quite, you know, well known. And unfortunately, the older you get, the more you know, and the smaller it becomes. Yeah, which is incredible. Definitely. Now, looking at your website, one of the things which I was talking to you about earlier, which I think is fantastic, is the restrictions, the travel restrictions. I mean, you guys put so much effort into that, but it's such a really nice, simple system, and it's so easy to use. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so what we did at the beginning during the pandemic. So let me just shut that down.
No, don't worry, go on.
Obviously we had the furlough system in the UK, and that, you know, we quickly realized that we were going to be in a position where we wouldn't really need to use that system because obviously cargo was doing pretty well. Yeah. So rather than you know, take government money and do that, we definitely redeployed people to certain areas. And I think I mentioned it earlier, or Glenn mentioned it earlier to you, our marketing guy. We put 7 or 8 people on that constantly all day, updating the travel restrictions and getting that information out to customers, or not even just customers, just people generally looking for what they can do, what they can't do. And that you know, that slowly we've lessened and lessened the people who are on there. But it was, as far as I know, I'm told by marketing, it was an enormous piece of work that took a lot of people and a lot of man hours. But I'm told that about a lot of things from marketing. So it always seems to take enormous amount of people and enormous amount of man hours. So. But yeah, it's pretty slick. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
And I told loads of people. I said, you know, go on there and have a look, and you'll see some good information. But also some of the facts and things like you've got the mention there when anybody going on looking for cargo charters. You've got the reference to, you know, having 50,000 aircraft, and you said about, you know, ACS being a behemoth. I mean, that's an incredible fleet to have access to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that number comes from. I'm sure someone's counted all the aircraft in our system. Yeah,
it's never been used, but nonetheless, it's still incredible.
It's huge, and and we've at the moment, you know, we're really stretching the kind of airlines and aircraft we use for our charters. You kind of got to at the moment because of the capacity issue of what's going on. So thank God we do have that many. Certainly, a number of different aircraft in our database.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And also the Q&A, that's pretty good. I like that. I like anybody should have a look at it. Now,
you're really testing me on my knowledge of our website now.
No, don't worry, I'm not going to do that. But I mean, it's nice and easy to navigate through, and you know, you're covering like the urgent, the dangerous goods, heavy and outside, all the things you'd expect but it's done in a way that's nice and easy for people to
Yeah, I mean,
familiarize
I
themselves.
I kind of mocked our marketing department just a minute ago, and I really don't mean that, because they do a hell of a job, and you know, the brokers kind of have to generate their own business, but there's no way we would generate the amount of business we have if it wasn't for marketing. It is, you know, it's another division in terms of sales for us. You know, they bring in the business, so it's yeah, we're every broker should be very grateful for our marketing department. So it's a good website, but I mean, it's not just that. The other stuff they do to bring in our inquiries is excellent.
No, it is. Now, something just to put a tear in the eye of Chris and Justin, and everybody now is starting to realize that, you know, people need to care moving forward, and especially with customers. And no matter where you go now you go to a restaurant, you go to a pub, they've got a shortage of chefs. The service isn't so great. So the few people that are there are having to bear the brunt of people's frustrations.
Yeah.
People are going to remember, and anybody who gets it right, people will also remember, and they'll be seen as somebody who was able to provide value when volume was the most common option. Now, from your own perspective, what would you say are the unique selling points of ACS within your particular sector?
What's the most unique? I don't know. I don't know if it's really unique. I think that I mean, I do training with people. I trained, actually, so I train all our brokers that come through. Just one part of our training. Our training courses are normally 3 weeks long, and they all the brokers, all the trainees come to London. We put them up in flats in Kingston on the River, so it's a nice environment for them. You know, we show them a good time when they come over, to let them know who it is that they work for, and try and get them to buy into our ethos, to our way of thinking. But you know, during that training yesterday, you know, one of the things that I always say to the brokers is that firstly, that we don't own anything. Okay, we don't have a plane. All right, at the end of the day, you know, we have to find our customers, and we have to try and add value. And if you're not adding value, then you're just pointless. You're a waste of time. You don't need to be here. So whatever it is, you just need to add value. And the other thing I kind of tell them is that, you know, it's great if you can find a customer that does 20, 30, 40, 50 flights a year, then that's fantastic. But to be honest, the majority of customers, they don't charter like that. They charter once a year, once every 2 years, sometimes once only ever. And one thing I try to make sure that our guys, our people know, is that whatever happens, that charter is the most important thing in that person's life that day. The most important thing that person. And you may do 10 flights a week, but to that person, it's the most important thing. So what we want to do is make sure that we're holding their hands, and we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that it goes smoothly. And that means that, you know, you have to understand the client's needs completely. You have to understand what could go wrong, where the weaknesses in a charter. You know, I'm spending this two seconds trying to explain it to you, but I spend 2 hours explaining it to them of what we want to do. And I think that that kind of level of detail that the account manager, the broker, has to go into with their customers is what we try to enforce upon them. And that is a thing. The one thing I should mention is that our customers have account managers. You know, that they have their mobile number. It's, you know, if my customer was my customer, they called me on mobile, they called me at home. You know, I'd be the one that does the pricing, I'd be the one that does the flight following, I'd be the one, I looked after it from start to finish. It was one point of contact. It was me that went and visited them. It was, you know, me that took them out for dinner, or whatever that is. And that personal relationship, that account management, we put so much emphasis on at ACS. You know, the relationship between the broker and the customer. I think that's one reason why. And I guess, you know, you talk about that person. I said personal. You talked about Chris's video. I think, you know, the way the ACS. That's kind of what we are. That's why that video is a real personal look at where Chris came from. It's quite a personal video. You know, Chris talks about his mum and his dad and where he was born. So, and I think that's what we try to keep running through the company. That everything's done on quite a personal level. And I mean, I could rattle off 100 things of what makes it, you know, why customers should charter with us. But most of those would be corporate answers. But at the end of the day, I think Justin Bowman always says to me, all things being equal, people buy from people they like. And so, I think it was Carnegie that said that possibly, but Justin probably tries to claim it as his own. But that's kind of what we tried to teach here. And as I said, I could give you the corporate answer of what makes us unique. We've got the most offices, we're the most worldwide spread. We've got this, we've got that. But underneath it all, it's kind of us trying to make sure that our brokers kind of, I want to say keep it real, but I sound like my kid. They're kind of,
that's because of the long hair.
Our account managers, look after their clients as if it's the most important charter in the world on any given day. That's kind of what that's how I teach it anyway. There are 100 other things that we would call USPs, or certainly why charter with ACS. But at the end of the day, I think that people charter, like I said, people charter with people they like, and that's a really important part of it. Honesty as well is a really important part of what I try to teach them.
No, that's good, and that ethos and that DNA, which links back to some sort of history that makes people realise, from those solid early roots, and then the way it's just mushroomed. I think it's fantastic. So I'm pretty sure Justin and Chris will be having the Kleenex there. a little tear when they hear you say
and that's that part we talked about, that hybrid model. The reason I said it about being so important to coming into the office, for us, it feels a little bit like we've got our arms tied behind our backs a little bit, not bringing our trainees over to London at the moment, which is a real, we like to bring them over here. I had 10 faces on a kind of Zoom training course yesterday, and I was trying to tell them how good it would be if they were in London, and they're like, yeah, but we're not.
Yeah.
They really want to come over, and they hear the stories from I was trying to explain to them, because we bring over the trainees in part pre-COVID times in groups of like 8 or 10 or whatever that is. And by the way, that could be private jets, commercial jets, cargo, they all kind of mix together. They go into the flats that we've got in Kingston on the river, and they become, it's almost like a kind of graduation year. And then 3 years later, you'll be at a conference or something, and you'll see, one of our private jet brokers from London talking to a cargo broker from China, and you're thinking, how on earth have those two got such a great relationship? Why would they even cross over? And then you discover they were in the same training group 3 years ago, where they all hung out together. And that's another thing. That's why we kind of make them live together and go out together and drink together from all our different offices all around the world. And that, again, builds that kind of ethos of personable relationships that we try to make our brokers have with their customers.
I think that's brilliant. I worked for Lufthansa for 28 years, and they had a training center called Zeeheim in Frankfurt. It also gained a few other names as well, but it was a tremendous place. But one good thing was, once you met people from all over the world, the amount of good and value that brought to relationships and work and helping each other was phenomenal. And it also built that reputation and that DNA of belonging, which was brilliant. The other thing I like in the video from Chris is when he's starting off early with the first aircraft, and he's talking about how did Justin know what a DC-8 was and stuff like that. But in the where it's got all the shadows, the cutouts, you've got the geese taken off as well. And I'm sure that's sending a subliminal message that everybody at one point takes the point and takes the effort and the pressure, which is basically what you've explained there, with whoever that first point of call is, stays with the customer all the way through, which is nice.
No, that's really important. And I've had some sleepless nights in my time, and times when not every charter goes exactly according to plan, and your customer's calling you at 3 a.m. or whatever that is, or you've got to call and deliver some bad news. But if you've got that personal relationship, delivering that bad news is slightly easier than it is if you're dealing with just a call in or that's come in. So it's part of what we do. So I guess that is our USP, really.
100%. Now, the last question I got for you before we wrap up is, looking at the industry, the way it's developed now and the way it's been forced to develop. So whether it's to do with digital transformation or, being more open or more dynamic or whatever, if you were able to look back and you were able to give a sort of a hindsight overview to a group of new trainees that might be turning up in 5 years' time, and if you were to say these were the best things that we learned in that 5 years from 2021 to 2026, what do you think those important points would be?
God, what do we learn? What have we learned?
What do you think we're going to learn?
I don't know what we're going to learn. I'm always concerned about whether we do learn in the cargo industry and whether we learn from our past mistakes. I do have a fear that the rush to convert cargo aircraft and going back to all cargo carriers, if too many people jump on their gravy train, then it will cause problems to it for us. But on the flip side of that, I don't, people talk about the scheduled services, the passenger market getting back to where it was at 2024, that sort of level. I don't think that will ever happen. I say ever happen. It's not going to happen very soon. It was not done. It got too much. Is what it had done. And COVID kind of leveled that stuff out and said, you're being ridiculous. You've got too many routes going on. And also, I think that we'll go to more fuel efficient aircraft for passengers, and maybe that will diminish the car. The interesting thing is, when I first joined ACS, it was the end of the DCA era. You mentioned the DCA just then. The DCA, the 40-ton aircraft, was being killed by the 777-300 passenger aircraft because of the belly capacity of that. And I didn't understand that at the time, but Justin would hark back to the 707s and the big DC-8s, and I've chartered a few DC-8s in my time, so they were still around. But now those aircraft are the ones that are sitting on the ground because they're the older frames, and that market of that 29, 30, 40-ton aircraft is suddenly back in vogue. That's now a really important aircraft. So what am I trying to say we learned? I'm not going to know if we learned anything, but I think the market has definitely changed. I think we'll look back, the brokers in 5 years' time, the trainees, I'll be saying this was the point that it changed, that it went from a sort of passenger scheduled-led cargo market to a more cargo-led cargo market. I think that would be the pivotal point that it changed in that market. So we learned that cargo aircraft are important, vital, actually. I mean, I can remember in the middle of last year, there were maybe even this country, because we didn't have any cargo aircraft, saying we must have cargo aircraft. There must be a G-registered, well, there is Cargologic came back in the middle of it, didn't they? But there must be a G-registered 747 carrier, and it's the government can call upon it, in the same way the craft system over in the US. So I think that's probably what people have learned, is that the cargo aircraft is vital to what we do. I just hope that we don't overdo it.
Yeah, no, you're right. And when you look at the old statistics that used to come up, and you're talking about your marketing team, you imagine industry marketing teams, whether it's with IATA or whatever, and also with carriers, and they'd be talking about contributions, of cargo. So whether it was 10 to 15% or whatever, and then somebody would say, you got 4 or 5% on first class, and then you got, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 on business. And you always wondered, well, why on earth aren't people putting the same level of marketing and PR and everything else into cargo? Whereas now, it's on a lot higher returns than that, and it deserves now to be separated. Yeah,
I would agree.
Well, sir, the one thing we didn't touch on was motorbikes, but we'll leave that for another time. But listen, thank you very, very much. I like the long hair. I think it suits you.
Thank you. And, it's falling out quickly though. It definitely puts a strain on it.
Don't worry about that. You've got a few years left. But thanks very much. You've really put a nice, genuine slant on ACS. And like I say, I'm sure Chris and Justin will be having a little tear when they next see you for a beer.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, but good luck. And it's nice to hear the effort you put into those trainees, because they're the next generations. They're the people who need to love what we do. and need to see that they're receiving the baton from people who equally loved it. So
yeah, definitely.
I don't know many people of my generation anyhow who sat in a school and a teacher said, "What do you want to be?" And they said, "I can't wait to get into cargo."
Well, there you go. Like I said, I've got a degree in agriculture, so
yeah, but you've landed on fertile soil. And, very good crop, I think, for the next few years. So listen, Dan, good luck, my friend. Thanks very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.